Hey there everybody, PTPOP here with all four lobes of my brain securely bound behind my back, and welcome back to another episode of Call Center Survivor. Today I'm going to discuss performance improvement plans. Yay!
You see, we're there, hippin' and the hoppin' and the pippin' and the boppin', so they don't know what the jail is all about, you see?
So, a couple of days ago, I got a comment from one of my subscribers by the name, well, his handle, his name on his or her name, I don't know if it's a man or woman, but their name is at Wayfay941. And at Wayfay941 said to me, please do a video about performance improvement plan, parentheses, fire plan, end of parentheses. And I had completely forgotten about PIPs. And I had this horrible, dreadful feeling when I saw your recommendation or your idea. And I, number one, I thank you for the idea. I'm not putting you down, but it's a great idea because I completely forgotten about them, and I don't remember if I've discussed them in the past, in the previous video. But I'm very familiar with PIPs, and when I saw the word PIP, and I just had this horrible sinking feeling in my stomach because I was on a PIP once. Now, to give you a little bit of background, prior to working in call centers, I wasn't like getting promoted left and right and, you know, the guy they went to for everything, but I was a strong, stable employee. I'd never been disciplined, never had any problems. I never had anybody write me up. I never had been walked into HR or threatened to be fired or anything like that. And none of that started happening to me until I got into call center work. So in 2009, 2010, somewhere around there, I started working at Verizon Wireless in a massive call center in Chandler, Arizona. And it was a dreadful, awful place to work. Just an abysmal place. And I'll never forget how awful it was. The training was terrible. The people that did the training were awful. And that was miserable. But what had happened at the time, I had to take this job because my wife was losing her job at a bank because at the time, the housing market was crashing, and the bank where my wife worked was filing for bankruptcy and laying people off because most of their investments were backed by these really crappy, not loans, backed by stocks or bonds that were backed by the bad housing market and residences and stuff that were all going belly up and going underwater. So their bank was going under. I had to quit college. I was in college at the time studying to be a graphic designer. I had to quit school to go back to work because she was afraid she was about to lose her job. So long story short, I get into Verizon. I hated training. I wanted to quit every single day I was in training, but I couldn't because we had a mortgage to pay at home. You know the story. You got to pay the bills. I get on the floor, and I'm assigned to my first team on the call center floor. And this is Verizon Wireless. This is all cellular communications. It's a massive call center of 1,500 employees. It's like a 1 million square foot building. It's a massive place with 2 floors. And there's all kinds of people working there round the clock, day and night. So I get assigned to my team. And this is the chismosa. For those of you that watch, I was assigned to a supervisor who was Mexican. Nothing against Mexican people, but she was Mexican, and she was this cute little thing. And she just walk on going, chismosa. Oh my gosh, And she was never at her desk. And there was never anyone to ask any questions to. And you couldn't really ask your teammates because they were on the phone all the time. They were constantly busy. We were all busy. And I was brand new on the floor. And on the rare occasion, I would find her at her desk. I'd say, hey, can you help me with a question? She's like, okay, well, you're right. And she wouldn't have an answer for me or anything. And it was so frustrating because I was there for a couple of months. And I just got sick of it. I didn't have a supervisor. She was never there. I couldn't get any, these customers, as you know, will ask you these really bizarre questions like, what is the circumference of a cell phone? And how much does it weigh? Can you tell me that? I need to know because I'm going to put the cell phone up my ass. And you're sitting there like, and you're being listened to by the QA team, so you've got to find an answer for it or you're not going to get your bonuses and things like that. So I got sick of this woman. I got sick of her never being there. So I went to HR and I said, hey, what's going on with this chick? She's never around. She's running around the call center floor doing nothing. I was so angry. Because, I had always wanted to work at Verizon. So I went to HR and I raised a stink about my boss, because she was never around, and I asked to be traded. I wanted to be put on a different team. So, HR was actually really cool about it. The woman was, she was very concerned, but she moved me to a team with the zippity bebop guy. The guy that I said was like Bill Cosby.
You see, we're learning, hipping and the hopping and the pipping and the bopping, so they don't know what the jail is all about. You see,
he was an African-American gentleman, and our team was divided racially. Like, the left side of the room were white people, and the right side of the room were black and Hispanics. And he was always writing up all the white people. He was always writing up all the white men and women. And the black and the Hispanic guys were always walking around doing whatever they wanted. They never got written up. He was never talking to them. So I get transferred to this other team. And I'm just like, okay, this will be a good start. Everyone had good things to say about the zippity bebop guy, and but the minute I got put onto his team, I can't remember how quickly it happened. He put me on what was called a PIP, and a PIP is a performance improvement plan. And I'm like, oh, what the hell is that? Why are you putting me on this? And he goes, well, you're struggling. Your numbers aren't very good. We want to see you get better. So I went over here to give you an idea what a PIP is. I went over to SHRM, which I think stands for, it's Super Human Resource Management or something. I don't know what it stands for, but it's a human resources website. Go to shrm.com. And I said, how do you establish a performance improvement plan? And this defined what a performance improvement plan is. It says here, a performance improvement plan, or a PIP, also known as performance action plan, or a PAP, is a tool to give an employee with performance deficiencies the opportunity to succeed. It may be used. I'm burping up my blueberries. I just ate some blueberries and they must give me gas. More information than you ever need to know. I'm gaseous, people. I'm gaseous. So, with performance deficiencies, it gives people the opportunity to succeed. It may be used to address failures, to meet specific job goals, or to ameliorate. I occasionally ameliorate, but I can't do it much anymore now I'm older. Behavior-related concerns. And outcomes. The basic idea is they're supposed to put you on this plan. It's supposed to help you improve where you're weak. And HR is supposed to be made aware of this, right? So you're supposed to be working, the supervisor is supposed to be working hand in hand with HR, so they have some documentation of what they're doing to get you to improve. So HR is supposed to step in and determine whether the PIP is appropriate, whether they're administrating all PIPs in conjunction with the manager to prevent bias, providing ongoing guidance to both the manager and the employees throughout the plan. So it's supposed to be done in conjunction with HR, allegedly, to help you improve and make sure the manager isn't being biased trying to fire you. And the PIP should be used when there is a commitment to help the employee improve, not as a way for a frustrated manager to start the termination process. Used as a ladder, it's nothing more than a document trail that should already exist, and it signifies to all employees that no such help is available. So bottom line, HR needs to assess if a structured plan with the time-sensitive goals is the appropriate next step, or if a PIP will be more of a detriment than an aid. Okay, so it's designed to be put in place to help you improve. And it's designed to help you become a successful employee at whatever job you're doing. And it's usually a last step measure. And as forgotten your handle now. As Wayfay 941 said, the fire plan, it really is designed to get you out the door. They usually don't put them in place until they're thinking about getting rid of you. So I got put on one, and my supervisor was this zippity bebop guy that talked in riddles. He talked in broken, incomplete sentences, and he talked like Bill Cosby. Well, you know, you're gonna get on a pip and a hippity pip and a snip and a nap, and you take these calls in your ACR, and he'd go off and he'd go golfing. The guy had been with Verizon for 15 years, and I guess, you know, he was African American, so I'm sure he felt he was a protected class of people and he could do no wrong. So he'd go off golfing for a couple of days. He was a former Marine, and he had a cut, you know, shape to him. He had always had fitted golf shirts on with the pastel pink and the blue and the purple, so he could go zippity-doo. You know, he was always gone. So he'd come up to me, and once in a while he'd say, "Come over to my desk. We'll do some talking about your calls, you know, and talk about the PIP I put you on." And I was furious. I was so offended and insulted that I was on this PIP because I had no guidance from anyone at Verizon about how to improve my performance. And no one had warned me that I was going to be put on a PIP, and nobody had told me I was doing bad. Just that, you know, my calls weren't the greatest, but they weren't terrible. But some of these calls at Verizon were really freaking bizarre. Like some of the worst calls, not some of them, they were the worst calls I'd ever heard in any call center ever. It got so bad to the point where I couldn't believe they were real. I was really convinced that there was a room somewhere in Verizon Wireless Corporation that just called into people and asked them crazy questions to ruin their call time so people would quit. I'm convinced that this exists in call centers because the calls I got were so bizarre. It wasn't just questions like, "Can you help me reset my phone?" or "Can you help me get a new battery for my phone?" or "What is the balance of my bill?" It was like these really bizarre questions, like I said before, like, "Can you tell me how much my phone weighs? Because I gotta go use it as a fishing lure today to go fishing." And I'm like, "How much your phone weighs?" "Well, sure, you should know that. Look it up." I'm like, "What? What the hell are you talking about? How much your phone weighs? Where do I find that?" Anyway, so I put up with this PIP plan for a couple of months, and the one of the last times he came over to talk to me about it, he said, "Well, you know what? We set this thing up in place, and you're not living up to it. You're not improving." And I said to him, "Well, you went on a golf outing for a month. You were gone for a whole month. So how do I know if I'm improving or not? I mean, shouldn't you be here to listen to my calls and take me aside on a daily or weekly basis and say, 'Hey, nice try here. You didn't quite succeed. Try this.'" And he goes, yeah, I should have been here." I said, "Well, you weren't here. You weren't doing your job." I just told him. I said, "You're not doing your job. How am I supposed to improve if you take off on a golf outing for a month?" And he got real quiet, and he just kind of like, "Well, yeah, I guess you're right. We'll do this again. We'll put it off another month, and we'll see how you improve." So I went to HR again. And as I've said in other videos, I didn't know this at the time, but do not go to HR for anything unless you've got everything documented and everything written down. So, as I said at the beginning of this video, you're supposed to be working on a PIP in unison with human resources. And so I go to HR, I make an appointment with them, and I actually liked the lady I used to meet with there. She was fair with me and honest. And I sat down with her, and she's like, "What's going on?" And I said, well, the zippity bebop guy put me on a PIP. And she's like, "Really?" I said, "Yeah, why?" And she goes, "Well, I don't have any record of it here. There's no record of it." I said, "You're kidding me, right?" She's like, "No, he's never told us you're on a performance improvement plan." I said, you're kidding. I was dumbfounded. I was completely dumbfounded. And apparently, as I'm so sorry, I keep forgetting your name. Wayfay 941 says it's the fire plan. They put me on this, or he put me on this, because the management on the floor must not have liked me, and they're trying to get rid of me, and HR didn't even know about it. So, I don't remember how the meeting with HR ended. I just remember her saying, you don't have any disciplinary actions in your file here with us, and we would know if there was something going on. And I was like, oh, fuck. So he's just trying to get rid of me. I'm telling you, my life was miserable at Verizon. And it was a dark, dark time in my life, and it was a bad time. And so the weird thing is a few weeks after this, I get called into the Zippity Bebop's desk, his little cubicle where he sat, and he's like, well, we're moving you to a different team. And I said, what, really? He's like, yeah. And I'm like, wow. And he goes, yeah. And I'm like, why? He's like, well, we're just moving the teams around, and you're moving over to, I don't know. I don't remember the third supervisor. I had 3 supervisors at Verizon, and this third guy, I don't even know who he was. I don't remember his name because I resigned like a month after working for this guy. I had decided to quit. But so I'm thinking, this is what I thought is that since HR found out that the Zippity Bebop guy had put me on a PIP, that it wasn't by the book. So they got me off that team to put me on another team. But when I got out of the new guy's team, the Zippity Bebop guy told me to handle certain calls a certain way. So every time I got these calls, the Zippity Bebop guy said to do it like this. But when I got to the new guy's team and I started taking those types of calls, I don't remember what they were now. The new manager said, no, you're doing it wrong. Why are you doing it this way? And I said, well, that's what the Zippity Bebop guy said. He goes, no, I'm going to have to, we're going to have to dock you on these calls for this. And I was like, I'm out of here. I just, I gave him 2 weeks notice within about a month, and I left. But the PIP that I experienced was used against me to get me out of the company. And I hung in there pretty good until they got to the new guy and found out I had to live by new rules by new supervisor who was making up the rules as he went along. And I was screwed. So I don't know, and then the more I think about this, the angrier I get. I mean, this was, for me, this was 13 years ago. I think, 13 years ago I left Verizon. And I'm still mad about it. I'm still pissed. This guy was a dick. This guy was an asshole, and he stayed with the company for 15 years. And I'll say it right out loud. He got to stay, and he had tenure because he was black. And they didn't want to touch him with a 10-foot pole because he would probably sue him. And he just sat there and did nothing. He was just like the Mexican girl. He just sat there and did nothing all day, and then we'd go golfing because he had been there for 15 years. He probably accumulated like months and months of vacation time. He'd be off Zippity Bebopping on the courses around Phoenix while I'm sitting there, and the rest of us on his team are just sitting there in squalor. I mean, his team is huge, too. He had probably 30 people on his team, and he did nothing. He just strutted around the office looking good, looking at himself in the mirror. This was an absolute asshole. And I said to him face to face when he said he was going to help me with this, but I said, you've been on a golf outing for a month, so how am I supposed to improve? And he said, well, you got a good point. And I said, you're a former United States Marine? And he said, yes, sir. And I said, oh, okay. It sure doesn't seem like it. I've known lots of guys that served for our country, and they weren't, I mean, a lot of guys in the military are assholes, but this guy was just not military. He looked military, but he wasn't military. He was just an asshole. So I quit, but they got what they wanted. They got rid of me. I'm sure they wanted me out of there because I couldn't believe this was a company I had dreamed of working for. This is a company that I had tried a couple of years to get in there and kept getting declined on my applications. And I want to get back into telecom. I had missed working for telecommunications, and I was really just blown away by how poorly run the company was and how well they were doing. This is a company that in their call centers were just run. Just once you got out on the floor, there were no managers. There was nobody that could do their job. Nobody was doing their jobs. People were just hanging out. But a PIP is a bad thing. There may be companies that do it legitimately, where they sit down with you and HR and they read up a performance improvement plan because they've done. I think it's a last ditch measure before they walk you out the door. But he was using it as a form of intimidation to push me out the door to get me to quit. And I stayed at Verizon. I was there for 2 years. I lasted 2 years. Somehow I lasted 2 years. But a PIP is a really bad thing. A PIP is just something that most places use to manipulate you and to push you out the door and get you so frustrated and upset that you quit. And thanks for the suggestion for the video. I can never remember your name. Wafe 941 at Wafe. Sounds like a French. I will have the omelette du fromage, a cup of at Wafe, and get it. I want it to go, please. So yeah, PIPs are nasty business, and my experience of Verizon was atrocious. And I use them now as my carrier because they're the best carrier. I mean, they have the best coverage. And we switched to AT&T briefly when we first moved back to Ohio, and it was horrible. So we're stuck with Verizon. I still patronize them, but I would never work from them again. It's a horrible company to work for, just horrible. So there you have. That's a performance improvement plan. Thanks for the idea. And stay tuned. Give me the thumbs up, subscribe, whatever you want to do. Auf Wiedersehen, baby.
You see, we're pippin' and the hoppin' and the pippin' and the boppin', so they don't know what the jam.